You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Good morning and welcome to Psychedelics Cannabis Educational News. It is January the 26th and we're live at Radio.net and 422.ca. Good morning, Rev Cindy. How are we doing today?
Oh, we are covered in snow here in Nova Scotia. It's still happening. We probably have about another 25 hours of snowfall predicted to come. I did notice during the opening and you talking that whatever is going on out there is affecting my internet. So if all of a sudden I'm gone, I will be back.
Yeah, exactly. We got like 6 or 7 inches last night. I'm on satellite dish here, so I looked over at it this morning and I thought, okay, it looks like it doesn't got any snow on it, and it is still just lightly snowing here after it's been 24 hours now. So
yep. Ours started about 10 o'clock last night, so it's been about 13, 14 hours now. And we have about another 24 to go. We got about, I'd say, probably 3/4 of a foot down so far.
Yeah, so yeah. Well, I hope it's light and fluffy. It's easier to shovel than that wet, heavy stuff.
Yeah, well, I because of my injury in my back, I do have somebody hired to come do it. He was over this morning and did the driveway. And when I popped my head out, he was like, he was throwing it around like it was feathers. So
yeah,
the fingers crossed.
Good. All right, we got news today other than just weather, and we've got 8 stories. We're going to be traveling around the world, I believe, and we're going to talk about psychedelics as well as cannabis. And Cindy, you're up.
And I am up. The first story today is coming to us from StratCan. We are heading out to BC. Broken Coast plans for Farmgate store in Nanaimo, which is amazing. Broken Coast Cannabis is seeking to open a retail store at its production facility in Nanaimo. Nanaimo City Council approved the company's rezoning application at first and second readings on Monday, January 19th. And the next step will be a public hearing. And then council will direct city staff to secure BC Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch approval prior to final adoption of the bylaw. Pardon me. Blake Ector, who is the Director of Operations at Broken Coast, says, "We are very excited about the prospect of opening our own store on site at the property, on their road." He said the company believes the store will add to the tours they conduct. Cannabis tours, just completely different subject. Tours they conduct at the facility, often with local bud tenders and retailers, as well as helping to grow the Broken Coast brand. We believe that Nanaimo should be proud to showcase and feature Broken Coast cannabis among the city and tourists, he said. They plan to build a 750 square foot store within their existing facility located near the Duke Point Ferry in Nanaimo, which is just so exciting. In late 2020, BC began allowing applications under its Farm to Gate producer retail store licensing model, which allows federally licensed cannabis producers to also operate a retail cannabis shop on site. Since the program's launch, 4 companies have applied and 3 have opened. SureCan in Salmon Arm opened in 2023. Victoria Cannabis Company opened in 2024. And Weeds in 2025. And it looks like Broken Coast is going to open in 2026, which I just think is amazing. Not just for the fact that they have Farmgate, but tours. And Broken Coast was one of the first craft licensed producers in Canada. Very small company when they started, very craft, no pesticides, really great cannabis comes out of there.
I've only heard good things about the company. I haven't personally tried any of their product myself, but I've heard, like I said, I've heard nothing good about it. And as far as opening a store, yeah, why not? They have the ability to do so.
Absolutely. And what caught my eye with that story as well is the fact that they offer tours, and not like, I mean, they focus on bud tenders, etc., but for tourists as well. And as somebody who, I'm not a bud tender in BC, never have been, but I used to use Broken Coast as a medical licensed producer before they went recreational in 2018. And I always enjoyed their cannabis. Their customer service is second to none. It was really, really great. And like I say, they're one of the first craft licensed producers in Canada.
Were they? Yeah, well, having the store there and doing the tours, it help people understand more about the cannabis end of things for those who are still looking for more information and are interested to see how it's done on the commercial end of things.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. Well, on to our next story, and it is I'm going to say a update on a story that we gave last week. So here we go. This one's coming to us from Marijuana Moment, and the headline on it says South Dakota lawmakers reject bill to let terminally ill patients use medical marijuana in hospitals. Yeah, a South Dakota legislative committee has rejected a bill that would have allowed terminally ill patients to use medical cannabis in hospitals and hospices. The House Health and Human Services Committee voted 12-1 on Thursday to defer the measure to the 41st day of the session, effectively killing it. Rep. Eric Emery, the sponsor of HB 1053, said it is a narrow and carefully constructed bill that addresses one specific issue, ensuring that terminally ill patients who are already legally authorized to use medical cannabis under South Dakota's law may continue the treatment when they enter the hospital or a hospice facility. Now, under the current law, a patient may legally use medical cannabis at home with their approved practitioner. But once that same patient is admitted into a hospital or hospice facility, that access is abruptly ended. And not because the doctor has changed their mind, but because the facility's policies vary widely across the state. Now, for terminally ill patients, this disruption can mean unplanned pain, nausea, anxiety, or even loss of appetite when care is no longer focused on the cure, but comfort and dignity. Now, representatives of South Dakota's Association of Healthcare Organizations and South Dakota's Healthcare Association testified against the measure, suggesting it would put facilities and staff at risk of violating federal law. Well, under the bill, certain healthcare facilities would have been required to permit qualifying terminally ill patients to store and use medical cannabis on the premises. Now, smoking and vaping would not have been allowed. However, and so patients would have needed to consume cannabis in other forms, edibles, tinctures, so on and so forth. Now, California and a handful of other states already have laws allowing terminally ill patients to use medical cannabis in healthcare facilities. That's known as Ryan's Law. The legislation is pretty inspired, or partly inspired, by the experience of Jim Bartel, whose son died from cancer and was initially denied access to cannabis at a California hospital. Cindy, I'm sure you probably agree that patients should have access to hospices.
Oh, I don't know if you saw my little picture down here, but I was just babbling and babbling and babbling as you were reading this. It's just, this is heartbreaking to see it not be allowed. Trump really needs, and all of the politicians in the United States really need to get on board and legalize or decriminalize or rescheduleize or do something that takes the fear away from these hospitals or anybody else that
Yeah.
has that fear, to know that they can let their patients use their cannabis. Like, they're not looking to smoke. I mean, like, they're looking to take edibles, tinctures, like you said, like
capsules, use salves, stuff like that. No. And that would have been great if they had allowed that to go through. This doesn't make sense. And hopefully, maybe again it'll be revisited, but who knows? And as it mentions, it's being held back because of federal law.
Federal law. They're scared of federal law, scared of losing licenses, scared of being in trouble, and that just. Meanwhile, people are suffering, and I just.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. All righty. It just doesn't make sense.
No.
All righty. Move on. Time to move on to the next story.
Yeah.
Okay.
On to the next story. Coming to us from Medical Express, psilocybin could treat depression via a non-hallucinogenic receptor. I found this kind of interesting. I'm usually one that's all about the trip as part of the medicine. Psychedelics, psychoactive substances that alter people's perception, mood, and thought patterns have recently shown promise for the treatment of some mental health disorders, including depression and substance use disorders. A psychedelic compound that has proved to be particularly promising for the treatment of depression is psilocybin, which is derived from some varieties of hallucinogenic mushrooms, aka magic mushrooms. When ingested, psilocybin is converted into psilocin, an active substance that influences how neurons communicate with each other in the brain. Past studies suggest that it affects the functioning of multiple serotonin receptors, proteins on the surface of cells, and receive the neurotransmitter serotonin, which is known to regulate sleep, appetite, and mood. Most earlier works focused on the effect of psilocybin on the serotonin 2A receptor, which is also responsible for the hallucinations induced by the compound. Yet the hallucinogenic properties of psychedelics are a key factor preventing their clinical use, as they pose risks for some patients and make predicting mental health outcomes more difficult. Psilocybin interacts with almost all of the 14 serotonin receptors. There's 14 of them. Not only the ones responsible for the hallucinogenic effects, which is the 2A serotonin receptors. We are interested in understanding which of the other receptors are involved in the long-term antidepressant responses. This is important for the goal of developing non-hallucinogenic analogs and opening new avenues for the medicine's development. The data collected by the researchers suggests that the serotonin 1B receptor plays a key role in how psilocybin affects brain activity. In fact, when the receptor was made inactive, some common effects of the compound on mice's behavior were less pronounced, which is kind of interesting. Specifically, after receiving psilocybin, mice in which the receptor was inactive tended to move more and appeared less interested in pleasurable stimuli than those in which the receptor was active. And maybe it's not all about the 2A receptors. Our study shows that there are other important targets for psilocybin other than the serotonin 2A receptor, also responsible for hallucinations, and that these targets contribute to the antidepressant and anxiolytic effects. And they now plan to dig deeper to understand how and where the brain, with the serotonin 1B receptors are influencing behavioral responses to psilocybin. Well, this is just really, really cool. I don't know about you, Al, but as somebody that works with these medicines as a facilitator, and and I've studied, it's always been about the 2A receptors, always been about the 2A receptors. So I think it's really cool that somebody is trying to figure out what other serotonin receptors, because apparently we have 14, it affects.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that it said it was a non-hallucinogen receptor type benefit for the patient, because just like with cannabis, not everybody wants to get stoned, but they want to use cannabis medicinally. And like it's the same thing with psychedelics as well.
Well, yeah, especially where there are some ailments that psychedelics are, the hallucinogenic side effect of psychedelics is very counterproductive. So if somebody has bipolar or schizophrenia, going into an all-out ego dissolution psychedelic hallucinogenic state may hurt them more than help them. So to be able to help them with something that's going to affect the other receptors and not bring the hallucinations, I think would be really cool.
Yeah, exactly. Just the research they keep coming up with is just amazing.
Yeah.
Things have really changed since the 60s, that's for sure.
Yeah, just a little bit.
All right, time to move on to our last story before we go to the break. And this one is coming to us from the Cannabis Health News. It says researchers propose THC units for safer cannabis use. Not sure what this is about. We'll find out, though. Researchers in the UK have proposed new thresholds for monitoring cannabis use modeled on alcohol units, which they say could help people avoid potentially harmful consumption. The threshold recommends proposed in the paper published in the journal Addiction are based on a system for measuring cannabis consumption not by weight, but by THC content and tracking potency and quality rather than only frequency of use. Now, in the newspaper, the researchers applied this unit to establish thresholds at which cannabis could be considered safer. Now, the research drew on data from a canteen study conducted at UCL, which tracked 150 people who used cannabis. They assessed the severity of the cannabis use disorder and estimated their weekly THC unit intake over a year. Now, cannabis is one of the most widely used drugs in the world. Despite this, there is no information for consumers about different levels of consumption might affect them, says Professor Tom Freeman. He's a co-author of the study and a researcher at the Bath Department of Psychology. He says that safer use thresholds based on standard THC units could help people better understand their level of use and make informed choices about their health. Such thresholds could be used by public health bodies and in healthcare settings for communicating the risks of an individual's level of consumption and by tracking reductions in use. Now, he also added that as cannabis becomes increasingly available in legal markets around the world, it is more important than ever to help consumers make informed choices about their use. Now, the research team has shared its findings with the Canadian Centre on Substance Use and Addiction, which is leading the global working group on cannabis units. Now, Dr. Garby's senior research and policy analyst at the CCSA says that Canada's expert panel for the legislative review of the Cannabis Act has made it a priority to develop a standard dose for cannabis products. A standard dose for cannabis products, Cindy. What you think? I see good and bad. Some people, you don't see a standard dose if you just use your own cannabis per se. But for the person who's looking for it medically, doesn't have anything to do with growing, just wants to use it as a medicine, knowing what a dose is can be beneficial.
Yeah, but one thing that we've learned in cannabis is that a dose for me is completely different than a dose for you.
Right. Or
a dose for John or a dose for Jane. I think that this is a really great policy or a really great idea for new users, especially, I don't care if you're recreational or medicinal. It's, I think, like same as like when Canada first legalized cannabis, like their big advertising thing was start low, go slow.
Yeah.
And I think this kind of ties in with that. And for anybody who's new to cannabis using it in any way, I think that is an important message. So this dosing can help a new user who's walking in to try it, to figure out what they should be taking and how they should be taking it. Somebody like you or I, like I would almost probably, I have predictions of what I'm going to feel about their low dose in the future. And I'm going to look at it and go, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. But again, for a new user, I think it's absolutely spectacular. What I hope is that's how they put it out there. Like, if you're unexperienced with cannabis, let us help you. Because, I've watched a lot of people green out and, or get scared because they've gotten too high. And, to avoid that, I think would be a beautiful thing. They'll actually get the benefits of cannabis versus getting scared off of a beautiful medicine.
And then to put that into the medical system. That's one of the things that people are always saying, and doctors have been saying, dosing is a problem. And if someone can figure that out, maybe that'll help further advance.
Well, absolutely, because doctors have no idea what to tell a person.
No. Oh, yeah, exactly. That's what my doctors have told me.
Yep.
All righty. It is time for us to take a break and do some medication. So you're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. We are live here at paceradio.net and 420pace.ca, and we will see you in less than 3 minutes.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Rerolled Saturdays. Check it out. Nothing but non-stop cannabis and psychedelic programming. Find it at 420pace.ca.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor? If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
PACE Radio is the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
And you're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. We got 4 more stories to cover. And what do you say, Cindy? Get out.
Might as well get it going.
All right.
Coming to us from Normal. Most primary care physicians say they are not comfortable counseling patients about medical cannabis. We just said this before the break. Most primary care physicians are unwilling to answer their patients' questions about medical cannabis, according to survey data published in the Journal of American Geriatric Society. Investigators affiliated with the University of California at San Diego surveyed a cohort of internal medicine and family medicine physicians from California. Respondents said that their patients frequently inquire about medical cannabis use, but most acknowledge not feeling competent discussing the issue, a finding that is consistent with other studies. Researchers report primary care physicians are asked about cannabis for therapeutic purposes by patients of all ages, but few are prepared to provide advice. Physicians were generally not comfortable counseling patients at any age about cannabis use due to limited training and an incomplete evidence base. Some shifted responsibility to the patient, urging them to use cannabis at their own risk, or referring to experts in specialty clinics or cannabis dispensary workers. While over 2/3 of healthcare practitioners nationwide acknowledge that cannabis possesses medical utility, most refuse to speak to their patients about it. And many say that they do not receive adequate medical training on cannabis-related issues. Well, I can agree with that. I don't know about you, Al.
Oh, I can agree with that for sure. They don't get the training, and if they got the training, maybe they would be comfortable in order to do that. And that's just not part of their training. They're not taught that in college, school, and universities, stuff like that.
I mean, matter of fact, even a lot of the training for doctors and psychiatrists or psychologists or therapists in cannabis or other substances is that it's bad.
Yeah. And I know in the beginning here in Canada, it was the patients that were going to the doctors and saying, "Hey, this is how it helped me." They were taking in, Treating Yourself magazine. It ended up in several doctors' offices, educating doctors about, medical cannabis.
Yeah, I've educated my psychiatrist and doctors. I've gone with people to their doctors to help educate their doctors, both on cannabis and psilocybin. And I mean, when I was in university, I took a Bachelor of Science in Psychology, and one of the courses that I took was on drugs and alcohol and how it affected the body. And cannabis was in there. And what I learned about cannabis in there, I mean, they don't teach it anymore, but it was not good. It was, how it affected the lungs and how it did this and how it was a repressant, and everything they taught was, we've now proven to be completely wrong. So yeah, a lot of our, 40 plus doctors and therapists out there, 40-year-old plus, ones that went to school 20 years ago, the education they got was it's bad. And they took it out, but they haven't replaced it with the truth yet.
Yeah, I've recently got a new specialist for my Crohn's, and I've talked to him about it, and it doesn't look like it's going to be a problem. So
good.
Yeah.
Good.
All righty. From doctors, we're going to find out how the medical cannabis is going on in Czechia in our next story. And here we go. This comes to me from the International Cannabis Business Conference. Headline says Czechia's medical cannabis market increased 46% in 2025. Now, the Czech State Institute for Drug Control tracks data from the European countries' emerging legal medical cannabis market, and according to updated data encompassing the 2025 calendar year, Czechia's medical cannabis market continues to increase in size year over year. The data was included in Canna Monitor's most recent newsletter. Now, it says that Czechia's medical cannabis market grew 46%, the strongest year since 2021. Now, the full data confirms the GP reform worked, according to the Canna Monitor wrote in its newsletter. Now, here's some noteworthy items from the medical cannabis data from 2025. A total of 305 doctors, including 40 general medicine prescribers, were authorized in 2025, a 28% increase compared to the prior year. Medical cannabis flower increased 35% from 233 kilograms to 313. And medical cannabis extract increased from 30 kilograms to 76. Now, they say that Czech operators are pivoting beyond production, import, reprocessing, and re-export are scaling fast. The infrastructure built for domestic supply is now serving cross-border demand. Czechia is becoming a market access hub. Now, medical cannabis was first legalized in the Czech Republic in 2013, with the first patients receiving safe access to medical cannabis in 2014. Now, starting in 2020, health insurance companies in Czechia have covered up to 90% of costs associated with legally prescribed medical cannabis therapies. Now, patients can obtain up to 30 grams per month. Now, in April of 2024, general practitioners became authorized to prescribe medical cannabis to suffering patients in the Czech Republic, which helped improve safe access. Now, an estimated 836 grams of medical cannabis were dispensed in the Czech Republic during the first year of legal sales. The total amount of medical cannabis dispensed in Czechia since then is estimated to have totaled roughly 1,100 kilograms through September of 2025. Now, certain adult use cannabis activity became legal in Czechia earlier this month, and then starting in January the 1st, Czech adults can cultivate up to 3 plants in their private residences and possess up to 100 grams. While the policy reform is designed to allow recreational cannabis activity, such as reforms also help adult patients who can now cultivate and possess cannabis for medical purposes, but without having to jump through the hoops of becoming authorized medical cannabis patients. There you go. Without being medical cannabis patients allowing people to grow, that's sort of like what's happened here, where we can produce 4 plants and not have a medical license. Yeah. And, unfortunately, some people think that that's a reason to get rid of a medical program. But as you can see in Czechia, the numbers are going up.
What caught me in that story, and I was really happy to hear you read it, was 90% of medical cannabis is covered by insurance companies. So people don't even have to pay for their medicine, the same as other prescriptions that are covered. I just think that that's beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's great that they do cover it for insurance purposes. And as you know, we'd like to see that here in Canada, maybe someday at some point, as veterans. But we'd also like to see that, to everybody be able to have access to prescription coverage, so patients don't have to pay, especially ones that can't.
Here in Nova Scotia, and I'm sure it's across Canada, there's one company, Sun Life actually, that has they have a section in the medical coverage under the prescriptions and medical needs, that you have X amount of dollars per year that you can spend on medical stuff. And a number of years ago, they opened that, and it was just before legalization, I think. They opened that to be allowed to be used for cannabis and cannabis accessories.
I think there was a cap on it for some people, like $2,500 a year or something like that.
Yeah, and, but I mean, it's definitely the cap when it first started here in Nova Scotia was $300 a year.
Oh yeah, that's nothing.
No, but it was a start, and I think it's up to 3,000 now.
Okay.
And if we keep pushing, and people keep using it and realizing it is medical, it'll be more. And that's something that I think we need to start reminding our medical patients of here in Canada. It's like, one of our fights as a medical patient isn't just to stay a medical patient, but it's to get covered by insurances.
Yeah.
And that, I think, should, I would hope that it would inspire people to keep their medical license and help push for coverage underneath their insurance.
I know there's been patients in your province, there's been patients in my province here, and others that have sought for medical coverage through the government, whether it's even through compensation for an injury, stuff like that. So hopefully we get that fixed, and that might come with those dosing, which we talked about in an earlier story.
It'd be nice to see it start.
Yeah, that's for sure. All righty.
Yeah. On to our next story of the day, coming to us from International Cannabis Business Conference. Grenada's parliament approves major cannabis legalization. Well, let's see what this has to say. It was a big week for cannabis policy modernization efforts in Grenada. The Caribbean nation is comprised of a main island and smaller surrounding islands, and its parliament approved a measure that significantly overhauls the country's cannabis laws. Grenada's parliament has passed legalization amending the country's cannabis laws, decriminalizing cannabis for adults, and laying the groundwork for a regulated medical and therapeutic cannabis industry. Go Grenada. This is coming from the Caribbean National Weekly. The legislation provides amnesty and automatic expungement of criminal records for minor cannabis offenses and discontinues pending proceedings for specified small amounts. It also affirms the constitutional rights of the Rastafari community to use cannabis as a sacrament within registered places of worship and at special events with allowances for cultivation. Under the law, adults aged 21 and over may possess up to 56 grams of cannabis and 15 grams of cannabis resin, and register to cultivate up to 4 plants per household for private use. In addition to the previously described reforms, Grenada's government is planning to develop a comprehensive national cannabis policy framework in the coming months. And the framework will include new policies for cultivation, processing, research, and medicinal use. Public cannabis consumption will remain prohibited in Grenada, and supplying cannabis to youth will result in significant criminal penalties. Grenada is one of the last jurisdictions to now move in the direction of the decriminalization of cannabis and ultimately the establishment of medical cannabis industry. This is coming from the Attorney General, Senator Claudette Joseph. Our policy of decriminalization will be paired with strict regulations to protect the youths and accompanied by a robust public education campaign and a strong enforcement against intoxication while driving. Medicinal use remains controlled and recreational use as per this bill is not permitted. The government prioritizes health and safety over short-term economic gains. And this is added by the Health Minister, Philip Telesford. I think they're making some decent strides there.
Yeah, exactly. Allowing them to grow their own cannabis. It didn't really explain. It says they're allowed to possess 56 grams, which is twice as much as what we can carry personally. But it didn't say in there whether that was personal amount or whether that included storage.
We get a lot of that in these stories. But I assume that, like that's out and about, especially if they're going to be allowed to grab their, to grow their own.
Yeah.
I don't know who wants to.
I hope that would be possession away from the home, because, it's how do you grow that little with, that number of plants?
Yeah. It's impossible.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. All righty. Anything else on that story?
I think we're good.
Think we're good? All right. Time for us to move on to the last story of the day. Here we go. This one's coming to us from Normal. The headline on it says, clinical trial, short-term CBD dosing not associated with liver abnormalities. Now, the use of CBD-dominant medical cannabis products by cancer patients is not associated with liver damage, including the elevated production of the alanine amylase, I just call it ALT enzyme, according to the clinical trial published in the journal BMJ Supportive and Palliative Care. Now, the Australian researchers assessed the potential impact of daily CBD administration, that's up to 600 milligrams per day, on the liver health in a cohort of 287 patients with advanced cancer. Now, it says that investigators measured patients' ALT and AST levels at baseline, day 14 and day 28. Now, high levels of these enzymes in blood signals liver cell damage or disease. And now they reported that there was no significant elevations in patients' ALT and AST levels over the duration of the study. It says that medicinal cannabis products did not have a significant adverse effect on ALT or AST levels, the study's authors concluded. Now, the prior studies assessing the influence of CBD on liver health have yielded inconsistent results, while studies involving healthy volunteers have typically failed to demonstrate an association between short-term CBD dosing and elevated liver enzymes. Other studies of certain higher risk patient populations, such as those with kidney failures, have shown minor increases in liver enzyme production, though the clinical insignificance of these changes remain unclear. There you go.
Yeah, that could so easily be, like, I mean, if they're not a healthy patient, that could just be what their body is going through normally. And without, of course, having anything to compare it to, because you're dosing with CBD, I'm going to put an educated guess out there that if they hadn't been taking CBD, that decline in health would have been greater.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. Yeah, exactly. But it's good to see that it didn't, it didn't elevate anything out of the extreme. And when it comes to, prescription medications, that's what they do. They check the liver to see if there's any damage going on. And, this showing there is inconsistencies, they say, in the reporting on this. So this one was on the good side.
Yes.
Yeah. So, all righty. Anything else offhand?
I don't think so. I'm going to go, watch the snowfall.
You're going to go watch the snowfall? Yeah, that's what we've got going on here, probably. I can't tell from here because my window's snow covered. I can't see at it, so. But no, other than that, it was good. Good 8 stories. Got some studies in there. We covered different places around the world. And hopefully people found it educational and informative.
Absolutely.
All right. And nothing else. We can say goodbye, sign us off. That's it for today. All right. Thanks go out to you guys, everybody, for tuning into the broadcast. We really appreciate it. Also, thanks to our sponsors, Limestone City Hydroponics.ca, Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, as well as at ease.ca. We'll see you Thursday morning, 10 a.m. And don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.